I was bleeding out in a twisted SUV, begging my family to save my 4-year-old twins. Their response? A laughing emoji and a text saying I was a nuisance because they were at a concert. They thought they were VIPs, but they didn't realize I was the one secretly paying their $364,000 mortgage. While they sang along to the music, I was already signing the foreclosure papers. And wait until you hear what my grandfather, a retired justice, had waiting for them at his gala. This is the $364,000 receipt. They say blood is thicker than water, but I discovered that a front row seat at a stadium tour is apparently thicker than both. 2 months ago, I was trapped in the twisted remains of my SUV, the scent of ozone and copper-tasting blood filling the air. As the paramedics used the jaws of life to pry me from the wreckage, I wasn't thinking about my career or my car. I was thinking about my 4-year-old twins, Leo and Mia, who were waiting for me to come home and read them a bedtime story. With trembling, blood-slicked fingers, I sent a desperate message to the family group chat. In a horrific accident, internal bleeding, being rushed to emergency surgery. Please, Mom, Dad, I need someone to get the kids immediately. I'm terrified. The reply didn't come with a prayer or a "we're on our way." It came with a laughing emoji. My mother's text read, "Amanda, honestly, you've always been such a nuisance and so dramatic. We are literally at the stadium for the Eras tour with Chloe right now. These seats cost a fortune. Figure it out yourself and stop trying to ruin our big night with your emergencies." I didn't die that night, but the Amanda they knew, the stable daughter who had been the silent architect of their comfortable lives for a decade, expired right there on the stretcher. What they didn't realize was that while they were singing along to Antihero in the VIP section, I was already calculating the $364,000 receipt that would leave them homeless, and I wasn't going to be the one to deliver the news. I was leaving that to the one man they feared most. My grandfather, a retired Supreme Court justice who spent 40 years teaching people that every action has a legal and often painful consequence. My name is Amanda Thompson. I am 34 years old, a senior surgical resident, and until that Tuesday night, I was the secret benefactor for my entire ungrateful family. Growing up in the Thompson household was a masterclass in emotional neglect disguised as trust. I was the older daughter, the practical one, the one who didn't need a hug because I had a 4.0 GPA. My younger sister, Chloe, was the creative spirit. She was a failed actress, a serial hobbyist, and a self-proclaimed lifestyle influencer whose only actual influence was on our parents' bank account. When I got into medical school, my father didn't offer a celebration. He offered a warning. "That's a lot of tuition, Amanda. Don't expect us to bankroll your ambitions. We need to save our resources for Chloe's pilot season." I didn't expect a dime. I worked 3 jobs. I lived in a studio apartment that smelled like damp cardboard. I survived on black coffee and grit. I eventually specialized in trauma surgery, a high-stakes field that pays well but demands your soul. Along the way, I became a single mother to Leo and Mia. Their father disappeared the moment the pregnancy test turned blue. And once again, my parents were too busy with Chloe's fashion week to help with the newborns. But the dynamic was stranger than just favoritism. 10 years ago, my father retired at 55, claiming his back was too weak for the corporate grind. My mother followed suit. They lived in a sprawling 4-bedroom colonial in a zip code they couldn't afford. How? Because I was the one paying the mortgage. It started as a temporary bridge loan when I finished my first year as an attending. Then it became a monthly $3,200 obligation. I paid their property taxes. I paid their premium health insurance. I even paid Chloe's content creation fees whenever her brand deals fell through. I did it because I thought if I held the walls up for them, they would eventually let me inside. I thought if I made their lives easy, they would finally have the time to love me. I was wrong. I was just a utility to them, like electricity or water. You don't thank the light switch when the room gets bright. You only complain when the power goes out. The accident happened during a torrential downpour. I was heading home after a 24-hour shift, my brain foggy with exhaustion. A delivery truck hydroplaned, crossing the median and slamming into my driver's side at 60 miles per hour. When I regained consciousness in the trauma bay of my own hospital, the overhead lights were blinding. My colleague, Dr. Eris, was standing over me, his face pale. "Amanda, stay with me. You have a grade 4 splenic rupture. We're going to the OR right now." "The kids?" I gasped, the pain in my abdomen feeling like a hot iron. "Eris, the kids are with the nanny, but her shift ended at 8 p.m. It's 8:15. She has a second job. She can't stay." "Who do we call?" Eris asked, signaling the nurses to start the anesthesia. "My parents, they're 10 minutes away. Just call them." But Eris couldn't get through. I used the last of my strength to send that group text. I saw the read receipts appear instantly. I saw the typing bubbles. And then, the laughing emoji from Chloe, the cold, heartless rejection from my mother, the silence from my father. As the anesthesia began to pull me under, a wave of coldness, far sharper than the surgical prep, washed over me. I realized that if I died on that table, my parents wouldn't be mourning their daughter. They'd be mourning their lifestyle. "Eris," I whispered, grabbing his scrub sleeve. "They aren't coming. Call Marcus, please. Marcus will take them." Marcus Smith was a fellow surgeon and my closest friend, the man who had actually shown up for every birthday and every minor crisis. While my parents were chasing Chloe's pipe dreams, while I was under the knife, it was Marcus who raced to my house. He found the nanny panicked and the twins crying. He didn't ask questions. He didn't check his schedule. He packed their bags, took them to his home, and stayed up all night making them pancakes and telling them that mommy is just helping some people at work and will be home soon. Marcus took responsibility for my children for the next 5 days while I hovered between life and death. He managed his surgical rotation and my twins without a single complaint. Meanwhile, my parents didn't even send a get well card. They were too busy posting photos from the concert, tagging themselves in the best night ever. On the 6th day, I was moved out of the ICU. I was weak, stitched up, and profoundly changed. When my mother finally called, she didn't ask about my surgery. "Amanda, thank God you're awake," she said, her voice sounding annoyed. "The mortgage payment didn't go through this morning. The bank sent an automated alert. You really shouldn't be so irresponsible, even if you were in a little accident. It's stressful for us." I looked at the 4-bag dripping into my arm. "It wasn't an accident, Mom. It was a lapse in judgment. I've had a lot of those lately." "Well, just fix the transfer, dear. Chloe needs some extra money for a retreat in Sedona, too. She's very traumatized by your accident, you know. She hates hospitals." "I'll take care of everything," I said, and for the first time in years, I meant it. I didn't just stop the transfers. I called my lawyer. I called my accountant. And then I called the one man my parents had spent years trying to avoid, Grandfather Silas Thompson. Silas was a man who lived by the letter of the law. He had retired from the bench with a reputation for being the iron justice. He lived in a quiet estate 3 hours away, and he had always been suspicious of how my retired parents maintained their lifestyle. "Grandpa," I said, my voice cracking, "I'm ready to talk about the family accounts." 2 weeks later, it was Silas's 80th birthday. My parents had insisted on throwing a massive gala at a local country club. They weren't doing it for him. They were doing it because Silas was wealthy, and they wanted to ensure they were at the top of his will. They invited the entire local social circle, including Chloe's influencer friends. I arrived leaning on a cane, flanked by Marcus, who held my hand firmly. My parents were dressed in designer clothes, that clothes I had likely paid for. My father approached me, looking irritated. "Amanda, try to look more cheerful. You're ruining the aesthetic of the photos with that cane." "Don't worry, Dad," I smiled thinly. "The photos are going to be very memorable." After the dinner, Grandpa Silas stood up. The room went silent. He looked like a judge delivering a final verdict. As I reach 80, Silas began, his voice booming through the hall. I've been reflecting on the Thompson legacy. Richard and Helen have told me for years how blessed they are to be so financially independent. They've looked down on Amanda for being money-obsessed and practical. My father nodded solemnly to the crowd, playing the part of the humble patriarch. However, Silas continued, reaching into his blazer and pulling out a thick manila folder. I believe in transparency. I asked Amanda to provide me with a decade of her financial records, and what I found was enlightening. The color began to drain from my mother's face. For 10 years, Silas read, Amanda has paid every single cent of the mortgage on the house Richard and Helen live in. That's $310,000. She has paid $42,000 in health insurance premiums. She has given Chloe $12,000 in stipends, totaling $364,000. A collective gasp went through the room. Chloe tried to hide her face behind her phone, but she was still recording. But that's not the most interesting part, Silas said, his eyes turning into ice. I have here a printout of a text thread from the night Amanda almost died, a night where she begged for help for her children. I want to read the response she got from her loving parents while they sat in a VIP suite at a concert. He read it, every word. The nuisance comment, the figure it out yourself line, the laughing emoji. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. My father tried to speak, but Silas held up a hand. I've seen enough. Richard, the bank has been notified that the primary payer of your mortgage has withdrawn. The foreclosure process begins Monday. Helen, your insurance is canceled. And Chloe, I've seen your content. It's vapid. You can find a job to fund your retreats. He looked at me and Marcus. Amanda is the only Thompson who understands what duty and family actually mean. My estate will be going into a trust for Leo and Mia, with Marcus and Amanda as co-trustees. The rest of you, you're on your own. The fallout was swifter than any surgery I've ever performed. My parents tried to sue me for intentional infliction of emotional distress, but their lawyer dropped them the moment he realized they had no money to pay his retainer. They had to sell their luxury cars and move into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment. Chloe's influencer career ended that night. Turns out, the lifestyle people wanted to see didn't include being a heartless leech. I'm back in the hospital now, but I don't work 80-hour weeks anymore. I don't have to. I'm not supporting 3 able-bodied adults who don't love me. Marcus and I have grown closer, and he still makes those pancakes for the twins every Sunday. I learned a vital lesson in that wreck. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep people warm who only complain about the smoke. I stopped being the tree, and my parents finally had to learn how to stand in the sun. It's hot out there, and they're finally feeling the burn. Amanda's story is a powerful reminder that family is a verb, not just a noun. If they don't act like family, they don't deserve the benefits of family. Setting a boundary isn't an act of hatred. It's an act of self-preservation. What would you have done? Would you have exposed them publicly, or just walked away in silence? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your take. If you enjoyed this story of justice, please like and subscribe for more. It helps the channel immensely. Thanks for watching, and remember, know your worth.